welcome again to The Goddess in Art. Our program is dedicated to the creative power of the goddess. My name is Starr Goode. My guest for this evening is cultural historian Dr. Elinor Gadon. She has taught at the University of California at Santa Cruz, Tufts University, and currently is teaching at Harvard. Her upcoming book, The Once and Future Goddess, A Symbol for Our Time, will be published by Harper's and Row in 1988, this coming fall. Welcome, Elinor. Elinor, in being a cultural historian, you have researched many cultures, Eastern culture, Western culture, you've researched ancient times and contemporary cultures, and you've also lived in a lot of different cultures. But particularly, you've researched the visual arts. And in your research, you've really focused on the images of women, images of women divine and human. And as you've looked at women and goddess through the millennium, I was wondering what were the universal symbols for her that she's represented by in the art? And from Ice Age artists to now, what are some of the common metaphors?
There are three visual metaphors. The first is the earth goddess, the representation of the goddess in female form, with ample bosoms, ample hips, not fat, fecund.
Right.
The second is the symbol of the goddess, which is the womb of the earth, the cave as the pot, her womb, pot or vessel. And the third is the downward pointing triangle, her sign, which represents the vulva, the sacred threshold out of which all life comes.
So these three images are found throughout all of art.
Yes, it was been very exciting to me as I have for 2 years I've been working on this book, and as I've examined in some detail and analyzed the imagery from the Ice Age 35,000 years ago through to the contemporary work of women, and seeing that that these three are omnipresent, and they're all very much alive in Hindu India, where the goddess is still worshipped.
Sometimes we see some of these earlier images just lumped as, fertility goddess, but it really means a lot more than that,
yes,
doesn't it?
Fertility is in, as we use it, is sort of a put-down, a limitation. This
right.
is really the goddess is the earth, the ground of all being, and the source of all life.
So really the great creatrix rather than just
yes.
like the mother of men or something, but the mother of all life, of all things, of the mother of universes, I guess.
Yes, and we've come to see this particularly with the understanding now with the Gaia hypothesis, which since the astronauts first went to the moon and took pictures of the Earth, for the first time we had a view of the Earth as a self-contained organism, and physicists have developed this theory now, which is established that the life itself is generated from within the earth. That's why they use the name of Gaia, the goddess, to identify this new theory.
All right, let's take a look at some of our first pieces of art. If we've seen the earth as humans from outside of it, let's see some of the first earliest images of the goddess. So if we could have this.
This is the Venus of Lozelle, carved on an overhanging rock ledge over a shelter in southwestern France. Our early ancestors lived in these rock shelters. She is carved so as to emphasize, with the natural configuration of the rock, emphasizes the fullness of her abdomen.
So that's the curve, the sway there that we see.
Yes, and this shelter was a sanctuary. She is holding in her upraised right arm a bison horn, which is notched with 13 markings. It's a ritual calendar. The relationship of women's body process, menstruation, to the moon is a established biological fact. With her other hand, she's pointing to that sacred threshold, the vulva. These are two views of the same goddess. You'll notice that her face is not carved at all. It's not that it's been worn out or erased in some way. There was no face, and her feet we can't quite see them, but they're not there either. The artist emphasized those parts of the body that were important to the sacred function of the goddess. And again, this is emphasizing her capacity to create all of life.
And in not having a face, it's emphasizing these capacities as divine qualities,
Yes,
really, even just
yes.
more than female humans.
Nakedness is divine. The naked, and we have, and this is another way in which we've so trivialized a woman's body, and the naked, nude female is
Self-deodorant, right?
That's right. Cars.
Yeah,
Liquor. This is from India, from the 1st century. Her name is Sri Lakshmi, and she is the goddess of abundance and good fortune. Carved from warm pink limestone, warm pink sandstone. She very sensuous. She is the ideal of feminine beauty in India. You'll notice that up her back is this oversized lotus plant. As the earth goddess, she and this plant are one. She, with one hand, she cups her breast, the source of milk, the first human nourishment. With the other, again, she points to her sacred vulva. Here is a drawing of the goddess in the full size of it, and you'll see that that she and the plant are one. This is the front and back. They both come out of this overflowing pot of water. Water is the source of life, the source of all existence. The lotus grows out of the water, out of the fundaments of the earth, and its stalk grows up to the surface of the waters, and it opens up its flower to the morning sunlight. And she is the lady of the lotus. She stands for all that is most valued in Indian culture, for honor, for beauty, for wealth, for abundance, for virtue.
Well, she certainly is beautiful and powerful. And I liked the water motif that you brought up, because I know Professor Gimbutas has said that in some of the Neolithic goddess cultures that it was water was seen as the source of all life,
Yes.
not the sun, but water. And water
Yes.
really connects all of us, and it enhances that goddess value of connectedness. And so if the goddess is really omnipresent and everywhere, where were things worshipped? I mean, was the goddess, she was worshipped outside, she was worshipped in temples, where was
She was worshipped at springs. Springs and sacred wells are particularly places where the goddess liked to dwell. And many of our cathedrals and churches in Europe are built over places that were goddess sites. For instance, Chartres in France, which is the beautiful Gothic cathedral, is built on the site of a goddess temple and on the site of a sacred well.
That's interesting, just to get the people in.
Well, to make the memory of the goddess and the power of the goddess and the love and reverence for the goddess never really disappeared. In Christianity, it just went underground.
Literally, huh? All right, let's take a look at some of these next pieces of art. I know we have some images of temples.
This is a temple of the goddess on the island of Malta in the Mediterranean. In the Neolithic age, 5,000 years ago, this island was a sanctuary, a healing center, and a place of pilgrimage. And on the island, more than 60 goddess temples have been found, and they are made in the form of the body of the goddess. Huge megalithic stones, some weighing as much as 50 tons, were hauled and raised to make these configurations. The temples are beautifully sited overlooking the sea. Here we see the entrance, and notice on that threshold stone the two carved spirals.
Yes.
The form of the spiral is another symbol of the goddess. Here we'll come back to the spiral, but I want for you to see the plan of the goddess. These are actually three goddess temples.
This is at Malta too?
This is at Malta, yes. This is on a place called Gigantia, which is one of the islands of the Maltese archipelago. And you'll see there her head is at the top, and that the round forms make her arms and breasts, and then her waist, you see, which is a passageway, and then the second round forms make her hips and her thighs. And entrance again is through the threshold, through the sacred threshold of the vulva. The altar would be placed at the neck. Now these two are sometimes called mother and daughter. Architect Christian Biaggi, who lives outside of New York City, has made a plan for a great goddess temple to be built at Vassar College, which is her alma mater. Here we see the entranceway to the goddess temple. It would be a great earthen mound, and the worshiper or the tourist would enter hopefully the devotee, would enter again through the sacred portal, the vulva, and you can see those spirals there, the spirals which represent emerging life and are also symbols of the goddess.
I also almost even thought of them as the ovary too, and a certain
yes,
source
that's a
of life
wonderful
like
analogy, and it is like that. There are it's as if all of nature is one that the symbols are reflected in so many different kinds of ways, and this unity of nature, the connectedness of all things, of not only nature but of our place within nature, is very much part of what the goddess imagery, goddess symbolism, goddess religion is about.
I was taken too with your image of the sense of the revelation of the goddess's body. That is the divine revelation, the nakedness, and
yes.
we see this feeling conveyed in this. This is another side view of the temple,
this is the side view of, and the interior of Christina Biaggi's temple, and what you see there is the long passageway into the body of the goddess, and in the interior would be this great hollow carved out of the earth, which would be the body of the goddess sitting in squatting position, which is the position she is usually represented in the Neolithic, that of the birth-giving goddess.
So once you walked in, you could see the whole thing.
You would be inside, like it would be like the great, wonderful in the Gothic cathedral, like the way in which the roof is raised and one is able to look up at great heights.
Now here we see the spiral again. This
yes.
is obviously a contemporary painting, isn't it?
Yes, this is by Meinrad Craighead, an artist who works in New Mexico, who was a Benedictine nun for 14 years.
Really?
Yes, I want to come back. I want to tell you what she has a wonderful book called God the Mother, in which she's published her images, which is published by Paulus Press. But here, this is called Spring into Summer, and so the spiral is the coiled energy of spring, which will uncoil and flower in the fruitfulness of midsummer. So spring is the dancing goddess, and summer is the little goddess playing with a ball there. But Craighead is wonderful in being able to symbolize the essential qualities of the goddess.
Yes, and again, those spirals seem to come out of the vulva area too.
Yes, the spiral actually makes her whole womb, which is and so that all of this is again drawing attention to the life force that is there.
And again, the life force wasn't seen just as the body, and yet all of things, like out in nature, in different landscapes, in the very topography of the land, the people saw the goddess reflected in that.
Yes, the landscape is sacred, and everywhere there are configurations of the body of the goddess, and this again is universal in cultures everywhere. For instance, the Native Americans who worship the earth as their mother can't understand why we will despoil it as we do. And in the controversy at Four Corners, where the states of Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, and Arizona come together, and where we have been trying to take the land away from the Mexicans because it's so rich, from the Indians, it's because it's so rich in minerals.
Now we have a use for it.
Yes. What they say is, the Hopi say they can't understand why we would rape the body of the mother just to extract uranium.
Does seem like distorted values to me, Elinor, but let's take a look at our next couple of pieces of art here, because I know we have some images of the topography of the land. Yeah, here we are.
This is from the Paps of Anu from County Kerry in Ireland. The goddess of the Celtic goddess Anu was worshipped. These are her breasts. And everywhere the soft conical peaks like this are either the breasts or the womb of the goddess. For instance, it's in the Sherpas, in the mountain people in Nepal, when Everest was climbed for the first time, were in despair. They said, if Everest is our goddess, is our mother, and if is she no longer there? In other words, why has she allowed Western men, European men, to come and walk all over her, to despoil her?
Mm-hmm. No, this is a very striking image here.
This is one of my favorites.
Mine too.
This was from a woman's art show in Portugal, and alas, I don't know the name of the woman, but I honor her. She has used soil and turf and made the image of the goddess in her own image. And with a wonderful playfulness, she has, at the place of the where the grass grows, the pubic hair, she has let it grow longer.
I'm too bad this isn't in color, or because it's in a wonderful, wonderful, rich green, the sort of green that we all like our lawns to look like.
Well, it will be in color, and I think that people will really see that.
Oh, it will? Oh, I'm
fertility
sorry.
in
All right.
that. One thing I was thinking too on that was sometimes people can think of these images as being really rather shocking, and that what's the difference between this and something in Playboy, or
I know. Well, part of the feminist reclaiming of the sacred iconography is meant to provoke, to make us aware of the fact how we have despoiled and trivialized and denigrated a woman's body.
Now, this is a very ancient drawing, isn't it?
Yes, this is from the walls of a cave from the Ice Age in northeastern Spain. And what this is important because it demonstrates for us some of the underlying meaning for the people for whom it was made. Here we see 3 vulva symbols, and growing up among them is a flower. It's very important to understand that this imagery is not erotic as commonly understood today, nor is it pornographic. The relationship, the analogy here between the vulva and the flower is that that all of life, not just human life, emerges out of the vulva. The vulva stands for everything that is alive. The American artist Susan Santoro, who lived in Rome in the early 70s, published a book called Towards a New Expression. She said that she was, again, exploring her own body, trying to come to understand the sacredness of her body, and discovering, as women have only now in the last 20 years begun really to look at the parts of their bodies that were never talked about. And she said the only thing that is like our sex are flowers in nature. And here we see, juxtaposed side by side, a photograph of a flower and a photograph of a vulva, of a woman's vulva. And we can see the flower, the idea of the unfolding of the petals, or the opening of the life, of all that flowering means to us, is a natural metaphor for a woman's sacred body parts.
Yes, and this is really honoring something rather than degrading it or exploiting it.
And the artist Giorgio OKeefe understood this very well. She has many, many images of flowers and of other parts of nature which can be read as parts of a woman's body. And when she first exhibited this in the 30s in New York City, her first major exhibit, the critics were very hard on her. One of them said that all she's trying to do is say she wants to have a baby. And from that time on, she said she would never again tell anyone what she had said was that my art, what I'm trying to do is express the most inner part of myself, the most sacred inner part of myself. And from that time on, she would never again ever say what her paintings were about. She just gave them abstract names.
Well, an artist like that is really a groundbreaker in what we were talking about in the last 20 years, where things are really coming through, and we're really getting new images from different artists, really like one thinks of Judy Chicago, you know, and her work in this, and really bringing forth new images for us.
Yes, Judy Chicago took as her task nothing less than the recreation of an iconography of the female. And she was one of the first to identify the relationship between her own creative process and the identification of her sexuality. And she has, her motif for her work at large was called Through the flower being the vulva. And she has this wonderful flower drawing. And then when she has another one that goes with it, so we see the flower, the petals of the flower around a circle. And then when the one called Female Rejection drawing, all the petals wilt.
Well, let's take a look at the next piece of art, because I know we have some images of Judy Chicago's. I guess we missed that one.
All right. Anyway, this is another motif of the strong, important one is the pot or the vessel as symbolizing the goddess. And this is an ancient one, 7,000 years old, from an early urban center in Turkey. And here the round fullness of the pot makes the body of the goddess. We see her arms, and then the neck of the pot is her face and shoulders. The idea of the pot or vessel is one that's carried into Christianity as well. We'll see that when it's the Virgin is spoken of as the
pure vessel.
I think that this is interesting too, because we've spoken of the idea of the water and sort of the energy of life, or the impetus of all life, and now we have the container of that. Not only is she the energy, but she's the form too that contains the energy.
Yes, and it's important that these pots were mostly made of clay, of the stuff of the earth itself, the body of the goddess. This one is from West Africa, made by the Yoruba people, and they use a gourd, a round gourd, and then they decorate the neck of the gourd with seashells, like the spiral, the symbol of emerging life. And the upper part of the goddess's body is carved from wood there.
So beautiful.
Yes. This one is, we're back to Mind Red again, and this one, she has the goddess blowing into the kiva, the sacred, which is the Hopi Indian sanctuary place out of which all life emerged. So here we see the goddess blowing life into the kiva.
So it's sort of a great round out of which all the life...
out of which all life comes, and those hands that you see going on the bottom represent, those are the handprints of the goddess. And again, this is a very ancient symbol, because women in the cave sanctuaries of the Paleolithic stamped their hands on the walls as part of ritual. In the womb of the goddess, they put their handprint. This is from a chart in the great cathedral, Gothic cathedral outside of Paris, and what we see here is the Virgin, the Queen of Heaven, the Virgin Mary with the Christ child on her lap. And in Christian iconography, Christian symbolism, the Virgin is the throne of the Christ child. Her body is that sacred vessel, again the symbol of the vessel, the pure vessel out of through which God had his son born in a human being, so that the Christ himself was nurtured then in this pure vessel within the goddess's body. However, the emphasis on purity has been a problem for
I was going to say
women.
the purity that the Christians mean, I think, would be different than what we would mean by that.
Yes, and different than it means in the God. We would want it to be unpolluted, but not only in the sense of not having the sort of chemicals and other things like this. But the purity actually refers to no sexuality, that the goddess, and that the Virgin then did not know a man. She had never had sexual relations. And she represents the very model for a Christian woman, and for a Christian woman to have as a model an asexual being, despite all the other Virgin's wonderful virtues, has been very problematic. And here
Still the Mother of God, though.
Still the Mother of God, that's right. But here we see in this this sculpture by the artist Marisol, the pop artist, she had a lucite jeweled womb, and when you opened it up, it was empty. But but Joseph had no body at all, so it makes very clear the Virgin's asexuality. This is a California artist, a local one, Vigili, who has gone out into the hills of Malibu to carve the head of the goddess in nature. Here we see her, she does rituals. Here we see her with her carving, the face of the goddess carved in living rock. The sacred symbol of the goddess, the vulva, is emphasized. There is a natural cleft in the rock. She has painted over it. Like the Native Americans, the Indians who lived here for millennia, who worshipped the clefts in the rock as the vulva into the womb of the Earth Mother. She did a ritual here just last weekend for the harmonic convergence.
Yes, I heard of it, and she did that up in the Malibu Hills too,
Yes,
and it was
yes.
part of a whole worldwide series of rituals. Which sort of leads me to this last point of, in looking at this art tonight, I think we've really seen the goddess traced through, we've seen like some very, very ancient things, and looking at it in the contemporary times, in these strong contemporary images, we really feel a reclaiming of the power and the sexuality and the spirituality of the female body. We really see it in a lot of these contemporary artists, and in that reclaiming of our past, there seems to be a new mythology emerging, some new associations going on. And what do you see this new mythology as, and why is it important for us? I mean, what's it offering women?
Oh, it's offering not only women, it's offering all of us, men, women, and children. It's enormously important because our very survival as a planet and a race is dependent upon our being aware of the interconnectedness between all things, and which is what the goddess is about. The interconnectedness between human and earth, and between the rocks and the trees and the plants and the animals. So that this iconography helps us to make these connections. Another thing that's so important about this is the honoring of female bodies and female sexuality, because there's a direct link between the raping of the earth, the despoiling of our environment, and the raping of women, violence against women. It's important that we resacralize female sexuality, human sexuality. This will help to heal the rift, the breakdown in relationships between men and women, and all the pain that has caused us all.
Yes, and that was something I wanted to emphasize too, is healing the war between the sexes.
Yes,
It isn't just so that women, can dominate now or assume some sort of power or hierarchical thing, but more an egalitarian thing, more of a healing thing, and to enhance the relationships of all things, not only humans to nature, but men and women too.
It's not about dominance. It's about the life force that is inherent, that is part of every woman's body, every woman's biological inheritance, is a life force that is to promote all of life and for all of us. And it's sad that some feminists don't see this. They really look for or would like to see an androgyny, and to in any way limit or to discourage the differences between the sexes. But that's not good. First of all, it's not realistic.
Not true.
It's not true. We are different, and and our difference is a source actually of pleasure and delight. But so that what this goddess imagery does is posit another view of this power that is in every woman.
Well,
and for all of us.
We'll really look forward to seeing your book, The Once and Future Goddess, A Symbol for Our Time. And I think in that book you're really helping us to see these new images coming forth, and we thank you for that work. Thank you. Good night.
In my